What he represents is patriarchy.
We're here to do work as men, as patriarchs.
There's nothing more natural than being a father.
Welcome back to the 21 Convention Special Patriarch Edition of Orlando, Florida, 2019. The next presentation here is actually not a speech, it's a workshop. We've added workshops into the event that are private and exclusive for you guys. This one happens to be in the conference room itself. It's going to be starring the one and only Tanner Guzy, AJ Cortes, and Ed Lattimore, all returning speakers, veteran in Tanner's case, to this conference, to the 21 Convention. They're going to be talking to you guys about the 3 Ps of self-optimization and an upcoming summit they have later this year. Without further ado, please help me welcome AJ Cortes, Tanner Guzy, and Ed Lattimore to the stage. Sure. Ed, thanks for coming out.
Okay, so now that all feels like nice and official, let's again just enjoy this, right? Because it is a workshop, it's not a presentation. But I want to give you guys a little bit of a background as far as why we're doing this, why we wanted to work together for a workshop, especially because these two basically came down for this. You know, it's not like you guys are speaking, right? We've all interacted with each other quite a bit on Twitter, both what you guys see, but then also quite a bit behind the scenes. And it was February of last year that I first reached out to you guys, right? Yeah. And we talked about if there was something that we could do, because we realized that the things that we focus on are so complementary. And we've also realized that so much of what's really cool about our corner of the internet, and especially our corner of Twitter, is that it's not just guys who are at the bottom trying to get to where they like themselves or why people like them. And again, there needs to be help for men who are like that. There's nothing wrong with being in that spot and trying to get to a better position. But a lot of times men kind of stall out there, where they're not terrible, they don't hate themselves, therefore they think that they've arrived and that's kind of it. That's as far as they need to climb. The 3 of us are very much more interested in this idea of becoming the best versions of ourselves, of optimizing who we are. And we all focus on different arenas within that are very complementary. So Alexander, obviously being a master when it comes to physicality, fitness, and everything that's related to that, I will be talking about, and I'll be happy to answer your guys' questions about presentation and presence. So whether that's style or the way that you communicate, the way that you speak, the language you use, body language, all those types of things. And then Ed is obviously the master of personal branding. And so we're going to be diving in with that. But like we said before, I mean, we don't want to just do another presentation. We want to answer questions for you guys. So do us a favor and tell us, before we kind of turn it over to you, tell us where you're from and tell us your name, and then we'll kind of dive into questions from there. So you guys want to say anything before we jump in?
No, that's you did a great job.
Good. Okay, sweet. So who wants to start? Who can we help out with one of those 3 arenas? Okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My name's Jeff. I'm from Massachusetts.
Awesome.
And I was planning on asking Tanner privately, but since this seems like a good opportunity, I feel like my personal look is boring, not enough fun, lacks any edge. I wear a lot of like business casual. I think I need a new haircut.
Okay.
Stuff like that kind of stuff. So what would you suggest for someone like me who, you know, I live a pretty straight lifestyle, like nothing out of control, and I just feel like it's boring.
Why do you want more edge or more personality? What's the itch that doing that will scratch for you?
I don't know. It just feels like an area I'm lacking. Like I said, I think one of my weaknesses in relationships is that I might be a little bit boring.
Okay.
So
it's more about, I guess, is it more about the way that you present yourself to other people, or is it more about the way that you see yourself and you don't like that the man that you see in the mirror looks boring and safe?
I have to say it's external. I'll admit it's external. I don't care personally.
Okay, so it is more about you presenting yourself to other people a certain way than necessarily how you see yourself?
Correct.
Okay, interesting. Okay, there are a lot of things that you can do with this. I would assume, based on what you've told me, that you probably fall more within like the refined archetype, right? And so there's a lot of the tradition and everything that goes with that. One of the easiest ways to be able to do that is, like you said, play with your haircut, because there are a lot of things that are limited within a dress code, and you guys can both kind of attest to this, that you can still fall within the guidelines and the expectations of what's required within a dress code, but by changing your posture, by changing your body language, even by like getting some combat experience, by changing your grooming or those kind of things, like it adds more of an edge to who you are and the way that you carry yourself and the way that you look. And so none of that is necessarily a quick fix, although I would say having a haircut that has a little bit more discipline, and I'll be blunt with you, the fact that you're starting to recede a little bit, if you just get rid of all of it and you go totally clean shaven, that's gonna add a whole lot more edge than anything else that you can do. The other thing that I would say is dialing in and tightening up your fit a little bit, but it's not like you need to necessarily be dressing where you have more color or bolder patterns, or you need to add accessories or anything else, because it sounds like what you're after is uniqueness through more dominance as far as like that edge of masculinity, as opposed to the playfulness of I'm fun or I'm an interesting character. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I would say start by changing your hair, adding that as far as your grooming. Put on more size, wear things that are a little bit slimmer that will accentuate the size that you already have on, and then start to carry yourself and even act with a little bit more authority, and that will come across in your presentation a lot more than just necessarily going and buying a whole new wardrobe or accessorizing or anything else like that. Does that help?
It does. You think I should completely remove the hair?
Try it.
All right.
Try it. I mean, it always grows back, you know? And if you don't like it, then there's still plenty of other things that you can do with it being short. And it's not like yours is so far gone. It's really not that it's like, dude, you should have gotten rid of that a long time, because it's not that. But there is an edge that comes with that that you really can't get in a lot of other ways.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, guys, who's next? Who wants some help? Besides them. That's fantastic.
Hey, we have a whiteboard.
My name's David. Is that coming through?
Just speak up a little bit for us, yeah.
Okay. My name's David. I'm from Jacksonville. I've been working, I've lost about 30 pounds recently, and I've been working really hard at losing that last like 5 pounds of fat. I don't really see, I'm struggling to bring my abs through and to really like show much more definition with muscle. I'm getting results, but it's taken me like 4 months to lose a small bit of fat, and so I'm struggling to go that last mile. So what are my options here?
How long have you been dieting for?
Say it again.
How long have you been dieting for?
Pretty strictly for about 6 months.
You need to take a diet break. So when you're talking about changing body composition, this goes for obviously everybody. The human body is not linear, so it doesn't operate on obviously a straight line where you can create weight loss for a period of time, which you've probably hit like sort of the plateau point where like I can't get rid of the last bit of fat. What happens is as you diet for long periods of time is that your metabolism will slowly down-regulate itself over and over and over again. So what that basically means is as your body keeps dropping fat and you're in calorie-deprived states, dieting is basically controlled starvation. You're under eating, your metabolism keeps making little drops, and then it makes a little drop. And you won't notice this, but you'll slowly reduce the amount of fidgeting that you do. You'll take a few less steps a day. You'll be a little less energetic. And over time, you can have a metabolic maladaptation happen. Your starting metabolism, let's say it's 2,500 calories at the beginning, it could be 1,800 calories 6 months later. And then dieting becomes very difficult because then you're eating this a very, very small amount of food. If this is, let's say, like your first time ever dieting hardcore and you're trying to physically remake yourself, you've hit the limit point for about how long you can diet hard. What you need to do from this stage on is take 3 months, eat at maintenance, increase your training volume. So just basically just train like a bodybuilder, sets and reps, heavy weight, moderate weight, light weight, get in the gym as many days a week as you can. Do that for 3 months, eat at maintenance, and then start dieting again. So you've dieted down this way, and now we're gonna reverse diet you back up to a normal metabolism, like I said, about 3 months. And then at that 3 month mark, then you'll diet back down again. And that time you'll probably get that last bit of fat off of you, but you'll be in a much better place metabolically. The other factor with this, when it comes to this revealing abdominal definition or just muscle definition in general, the bigger a muscle is, the more definition there is to reveal. For those guys, this is like an either-or scenario. For those guys who naturally have abs, they already know this, because if they get leaner, it's like, oh, abs. If you don't naturally have abs, you need to treat your abs like basically treat them like any other muscle, where you have to hypertrophy them and get them thicker, stronger, and that means training them progressively with progressive resistance. That means doing stuff like weighted crunches, weighted twist movements, doing things that really challenge the muscle to actually work and express strength. a lot of times what guys do is they sort of go for this, like the reps, where it's like, I'm gonna do this like 500 reps of sit-ups, something like that. That is essentially just endurance training. It's not getting the muscle to be any more prominent. So you have to increase the loading, increase the frequency of how often you train them, let's say 3-4 days a week, and then obviously doing this in conjunction with the overall training that you're doing. Do that for 3 months, then start dieting again. You'll have a much different body this time around.
Wait, so I have a follow-up for that.
Good.
By going back up to maintenance, should he be going up to what the current maintenance is when his metabolism drops? Or, okay, not going back up to what maintenance would have been otherwise?
So hopefully if you've been tracking your calories, like this is why you have to use numbers for this kind of stuff, because otherwise it's all shot in the dark. If let's say you start at 2,700 calories and now you're down to like 2,000, you'd shoot back up to let's say like 2,500. So this is what a reverse diet is. Like you don't immediately add on 800 calories, 700 calories to your diet. You add in like 300 for a month. Then you add in another 300. Then you add in 200. So then you have this, sort of pyramid elevation happening. Oh, perfect. And that's how you can avoid basically like the fear of the fat gain. Like what if the fat comes back? That's how you make that not happen. So it's not like a case where you diet hard and then it's, like I said, 1,000 calories more. Like, yeah, that will yield fat gain. If you do it slowly, though, you won't have that happen because you're titrating the effect that way. Hopefully that answered the question. Go ahead.
Yeah. My instinct is to just continue cutting calories and cut down, start eating 600-700 a day and do that for a while. That's the inkling that's always in the back of my mind. Is that definitively a bad idea?
Yes.
Great.
That's basically that's basically girl dieting. That's what chicks will do, where it's like, I need to lose weight fast. So they just starve themselves for like a month, and they lose weight fast, and they get hungry and like emotional, and they're probably underfucked, and then they eat their feelings, and they go back up in weight. So like, there's this human instinct. If you just like keep starving yourself, I guess like it will just keep working. What will happen is you'll basically sort of get like soft, small looking, and still won't have abs. And then metabolically, you'll be in a place where your training will basically be doing nothing. It'll just be like eating up muscle. And that's how people sometimes will diet themselves down to like a skinny fat state, where like they dieted for too long. Yeah, like I said, like dieting is not something you can do forever.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, who's next?
Who's up? You, sir.
So I like to play tennis, so that's one way that gives me a good cardio. And the second thing which I like to do is, I should actually do more of, is weight training. But the question I have, or the challenge I'm facing is basically I lose motivation. At the beginning of the year, January, I'm motivated to work out in the gym 3 or 4 times a year. But at certain point of time, midway through the year, I start losing motivation towards working out in the gym. But tennis is something which I'm, particularly, I carry it on because it's more fun, it's a social thing for me. But what can I do? Some tips you can give me to sort of maintain my motivation on weight training?
I always call this motivation games. Like on the psychological side, I could tell you to like dive into your identity and like, what is your vision of yourself? And that could go on forever. From the external motivational side, there's 2 factors. You need to set, if you're going to do something you want to commit to it, setting a goal, like a concrete goal around what it is you're doing, that is cliched, but it does work. Very oftentimes as a man, as men, like there's things we want to do. I'd like to improve this part of myself. If you're not putting pressure on yourself where you have to keep yourself accountable, it's probably not going to happen. It's very nice to idolize and think that I'm internally driven and I don't need motivation. Everybody needs motivation on some level. Even your internal motivation is like your internal drive is motivation enough. So creating a goal around your training, that could be like something substantial. Working out with a partner, like getting like someone to train with you. Whether it's a personal trainer or a buddy, that's very motivating because bros, to be very cliche, when you have a bro there that's watching your progress and you're watching his progress, again, like you get that sort of that fire going in you. The other factor and this goes into like the details of it. Depending upon how you're training, if it's not that effective, it's very easy to become demotivated from lack of results. And that's something I see with a lot of older guys where they're still training how they learned to train 20 years ago in high school, or whenever it was, like let's say in college maybe. And so you're doing these workouts and it's kind of working, it's kind of not working. Maybe you're doing like damned, like let's say 3x5 training, which doesn't do anything for a lot of people. And you're expecting like this outcome to have happen, and it's not happening. And it's like, you know what, like I'm not really feeling this now. Yeah, had you trained effectively, you might have gotten much greater results. And it's like, you know what, I like doing this and it's working, so I will continue on doing it. So like, I mean, the lack of motivation that I've seen in most people, like I said, it's either from lack of pressure or what they're doing just isn't working. If you're getting a return on something, there's usually an instinct to want to keep doing it because it's substantial and you can see it. If it's not happening at all, like, yeah, anyone will want to quit something if they feel like they're making no real progress.
Yeah, how fun would it be to play tennis if you sucked at it? Right? I mean, you wouldn't keep doing it if you didn't enjoy it. And it's the same thing in the weight room where the better you get at it, the more you enjoy going. And then it's, I mean, I'm certainly not at these guys' level, but I don't have to motivate myself to go to the gym. I hate days when I don't get to go anymore because I enjoy it that much. And I assume that's the same for you guys too.
Absolutely. And to that I would add, like, just from what I can see, just from what I can see back here, like you don't look particularly like jacked or anything. So my first thought is, okay, when you say you stop keeping your motivation 3 or 4 months in, it might be a little earlier, or like what he's saying, what you're doing is not that effective. And that can be, the first thing I hear is like, okay, I like tennis, but weightlifting is kind of giving me an issue. Is, okay, well, tennis is got this social component, there's a competitive component, and you need to make the workouts work with your personality. Like, you know, for me, when I stop, now I'm gonna talk about boxing, my bad, right? When I stopped fighting, the hardest thing for me to do to switch over to training was to find a way to get that feeling of incremental improvement. Because like in the gym, I can feel, okay, I wore myself out. I feel like I'm a little more coordinated. How can I translate that feeling into the gym? Well, I started tracking body fat. And that's one of the reasons why I started paying. I paid to go to a gym that has access to an in-body scanner so I could see and track what I was doing. And then it turned into a competitive game for me. And on top of that, the other thing was like just going to the weight room was effing boring for me, man. Like being in that place, in that fitness environment, there were guys to talk to and interact with. So the motivation is not, I mean, the results are a big part of it, but the other part is you have to play to your personality. If you're a social guy and your athletic experience has come through competition and team sport, you're probably going to hate the weight room when you first get started. You're definitely going to hate running. And like, you know, I'm not telling you to do cardio or not, but those are solitary improvements in your fitness, and that's not what you've gotten used to. So you got to find a way to recapture that, whether it's, you know, joining. I'm telling you, dude, I go to this place, here I am, like quite literally a professional athlete, and they're freaking old ladies in there sometimes working out, or guys that have never competed in their life. But you know what it is? It's the social component for me. It's like getting back in a boxing gym. I'm not willing to put the investment in like a boxing gym anymore. But that was very important to me when I got out of it. Once I figured that out, it turned into, you know, I'm going there, waking up at 5 in the morning and again getting in there, and then I'm going to work out, you know, again because the trigger for what's enjoyable has changed, and now I'm getting into the training. So yeah, work with your personality, and like he said, man, track a goal, whether it be, you know, okay, man, my arms are a little bigger, I'm 3 pounds heavier in the morning, not at night, those kind of things. You know, you follow those and they'll bring motivation.
Yeah, the Guzy got me thinking about this, Ed, since obviously you were our legitimately professional athlete, and I've been watching you train, you know, sort of like your Instagram, and you're hitting like certain strength goals, doing certain things. Yeah, and that's something like this actually speaks to the psychology of like, you know, masculinity. What are your standards that you have for yourself across your life? Like, do you even think in those terms? Like, if you were to go through like different categories of being, where you have like your professional life, your familial life, you know, your personal life, you know, tennis, whatever. Do you have certain standards that you hold yourself to that are defined standards? Yeah, that's something like with strength training that's like the metaphor is very simple, direct. If you want to get in the gym and start training and motivate yourself, let's set some strength standards. Yeah, and like I've talked about this many times on my email list, where if you can hit certain markers with body weight, with dumbbells, with a barbell, with body weight strength, that gives you something to work towards, and it's definable, and you can reverse engineer that goal. And then now when you're in the gym, it's not just an arbitrary, I'm here to work out. Yeah, I'm here to train chest. It's like, no, I'm actually working towards something. Now, if you hit that goal, let's say, and you find your happy median point, well, then now you know you need to maintain that. And you've also taught yourself how to systemize process towards a goal, pick something, work it backwards, and then you can carry that over into other areas of your life. Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's why I harp on the physical side so often for men, is that if you are in a place where you're trying to figure out like how you want to develop yourself, what standard are you holding yourself to? What are the standards? And that's a big question for a lot of areas. For the weight room, that's pretty simple. Yeah. What do you squat? What do you bench? What do you deadlift? How many pull-ups can you do? How many push-ups can you do? Can you do dips? These are very basic things, and once you train at them and you're able to do them, you reveal that capability in yourself, you realize, okay, like on a very basic but very profound level, if I set my mind to something and apply myself with action, with physical force, and I execute, I can actually bring that into being, I can make it happen. So change is possible, and if I have a standard that I follow, well then, what else can I apply standard to? And then you start improving in other areas.
Yeah, the momentum picks up.
Yeah, exactly. You create your own internal momentum that way, which is drive.
I do have great inputs, by the way. So I'm going to take a lot of takeaways. I'll apply that, the social, the competitive spirit. But I do have a follow-up question. So personally, my goals are to lose at least 5 to about 8 more pounds and become more leaner. Right now, probably when I last checked, I was at 14% body fat. Bring it down to about 10% and pack some muscles, right? So I've heard a little bit about intermittent, fasting. What's your take on that? Does it help? I mean, 2 meals a day with intermittent fasting, that's what I heard some of the, YouTubers talk about.
So
Go first.
there's lots to roll with that. So, I mean, for all you guys, to make it general, it's entirely possible to gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. That's
Especially
totally.
if you're brand new.
Yeah, that's totally doable. If you haven't trained in a long time, let's say it's been 5 years since you took the gym seriously. If let's say you're just overweight, you know it, and you want to start training again, having the more body fat you have on you, it actually gives you a metabolic advantage because you can keep gaining muscle for a while because the basically calories towards the muscle gain will come from the excess body fat. Now, if you've been training for 5 years, you're not going to have that happen. Like it's going to be more bulk cut kind of scenario. If you are a relative beginner, though, yeah, you can get bigger and get leaner at the same time. Now, where does intermittent fasting play into that? Intermittent fasting is not optimal for muscle gain. So, like for yourself, if you're already playing tennis, you already have a cardiovascular base, I personally wouldn't recommend that. You could do it and you might get leaner, but the likelihood of you being more muscular, it's pretty low. You're going to be kind of a skinnier version of yourself with no real substantial muscle. What would be more advantageous in this basic would be to eat like a traditional 3 meals a day, high protein diet, lift 3 or 4 times a week, and eat at maintenance. That's the other factor for someone that's sort of like in that in-between zone. If you eat at maintenance calories, but you increase your protein intake to about 1 gram per pound of body weight or more, you're going to gain muscle mass. That's been clinically substantially proven many times over. And that's an issue for most people in general. For a lot of guys, they just undereat protein. If you're on a high protein diet and you're lifting weights and you're not gaining any muscle mass, either you're lifting terrible or you're lying about your diet. It's kind of like, so it's almost impossible for that to not work.
You got to get your hormones checked.
Yeah, or maybe your testosterone is in the tank. That could be it. So
that was me.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another factor to that. So intermittent fasting, I would deem it I intermittent fast, but I'm pretty happy with my physique right now relative to what I do, which is ballet, where I can only be so big for it because otherwise you can't spin because you're too heavy. I use intermittent fasting to maintain my body weight, body fat percentage, and I can drive that down. But if I decide hey man, I want to get up to 220, I wouldn't be intermittent fasting. I'd be eating 3 to 6 small meals a day and training to get bigger and do it that way. So I mean, the metaphor there, you always pick sort of the dietary model that is most effective for your specific goal. If the goal is to get leaner with muscles, that's going to be sort of that traditional what I call recomposition diet. If the goal is literally just to lose body fat, yeah, that'd be intermittent fasting. And if the goal is to obviously gain weight, do what bro science has proven works a million times over: small protein-rich meals and go lift.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that is our resident bro science kind of apprentice, doing a lot of experimentation on myself lately, and one of the big things that I've switched to is intermittent fasting. Here's what I'll say about intermittent fasting. One, you absolutely need to get your maintenance calories or slightly below 10% is, what's popular, I guess. And that seems to work if I think about my numbers and what I am. Yeah, I'm putting away about 1,800 calories in my IF window most times. Here's the thing, you're gonna be surprised how relatively difficult it is to get 18 to 2,200 calories in a 6 to 8 hour window if you're doing it correctly. Like not eating garbage, eating good, lean food. It's gonna be a challenge. Can it be done? If you have the lifestyle for it, I can eat whenever I want to, so it wasn't really an issue once I figured out how much I needed to put away. But if you can do it, I found, and this is another thing, from when I looked at in the science, I guess your body goes into a slightly ketogenic state after you haven't consumed anything for, I think it's 12 hours, maybe 14 or whatever. And that's where the real benefit comes in. So what I would do is I'd intermittent fast at the 14 or 15 hour mark. I'd go after I already did my weightlifting in the morning, I'd go and do an afternoon cardio session. And I got more out of the cardio because my body was primarily burning fat, or so I'm assuming, and at least the results show. So we can go with that. So IF will lower body fat. As far as keeping muscle goes, it's funny because I have two things to show. One where I wasn't doing intermittent fasting and eating clean, and one where I was. And my muscle gain was like nil. I didn't lose any, I didn't gain any, but the body fat dropped on IF. When I was spacing it out and training the other day, oh man, I must have gained in 1 month. I think my body fat percentage dropped almost 3 percentage points, and I gained 8 pounds of muscle. And that's from eating about 2,400 calories a day, all clean, mostly protein, and really just living in the gym. So the TLDR, to sum that up, if you want to lose body fat and you're content with where your muscle mass is right now, you're not going to be disappointed if you don't suddenly come out looking like Popeye or something. IF for sure. And on top of that, and this is unrelated directly to the question, but the mental clarity you get, not from like some magical chemical change that happens, so apparently that happens, but because of you not having to worry about meals, is really, that's worth the wait and gold to me. So
there's actually a good point there about when you gain more muscle mass eating the meals. So there's something called positive nitrogen balance in the body, and it basically means that when you are consuming protein regularly, your body has enough amino acids to continuously be building muscle. If you're not eating protein regularly, you'll be in a negative nitrogen balance. That's the reason why, again, bodybuilders will eat around the clock, where it's like, that seems like a lot of work. Like, yeah, it actually is a lot of work, but your body can basically build muscle continuously 24/7. If you're only eating 1 meal a day, like your gains will be pretty marginal. And there's also the factor of what Ed pointed out, where trying to eat like 2,000 calories within 8 hours is actually like really, really hard. If it's not terrible food. The only way that I'm able to do it, like I'll have to use protein shakes, because otherwise it's like, it sounds cool, like, oh, I get to eat these great, huge meals. If you eat like a really big meal and you're not hungry again for 6 hours, let's say 4 or 6 hours, it's like, oh, I'm at the end of my window, but then I need to eat another huge meal, then try it.
And to add to that, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think you get into a problem because the protein shakes somehow have an effect on your insulin levels. So it makes it harder to burn fat if you're going to get that with protein shakes.
Well, the thing with protein is highly thermogenic. So basically, it takes about, for every like 100 calories of protein you ingest, your body will absorb about 70 calories of usable energy from that. So protein, like the thermogenic value of protein is like 20 to 30%. Like the act of digesting it actually burns calories. But that's also why if you eat you're Indian, so you probably don't eat steak. You eat chicken? Okay, let's just pretend. Jesus. All right, let's pretend you were Sikh and you eat chicken. I lived in India 6 months, so nothing but love. Let's pretend like you're Sikh, you eat chicken, and you're really full after eating the chicken. That's going to take a while to digest. So, like, do you eat dairy?
No, actually, I'm plant-based.
Completely plant-based. Okay, that's actually perfect, because if you eat a plant-based diet, your fiber intake's going to be pretty high. You'll stay full a really long time. So I mean, like now that I know all this about you, like I wouldn't recommend intermittent fasting for you because you probably just end up really under eating, and like I said, you just end up like skinny fat Indian, so which you probably want to avoid.
Over here, sir.
So I want to come back and add on to his question a little bit and talk about goals and motivation. I have one goal, and that's lose 100 pounds, but I don't think about it like ever. And I'm almost entirely habit driven. Did the sun rise? I go to the gym. Did someone say my shirt fits like a tent? Then I go buy a new shirt. And that's literally, that's like everything is a habit. And I'm wondering if I'm just missing an opportunity to go harder, faster, better.
I think to use the cliche that's floating around the internet right now, which is useful, but it's turned into a cliche.
Are you going to tell him to tell his son this?
No, but not before I tell no one. No one's talking about it, man. No, you need a system instead of a habit. There's no way around that because or not even. It sounds like even habit. Making sure I hear this right. That you have the goal to lose the weight, but you only work on it when someone notices or some situation arises that points out you need to lose the weight. That's the problem, right?
Let me say it a little differently. So I came up with the idea that I needed to lose the weight, and then I just structured the habit and said, okay, I'm gonna do lifting 3 days a week, cardio 4 days a week, the other 4, and boom, 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 and then gone. Okay.
Is it working?
To the point of where I'm blowing up my body. We talked about that. And so, that's really kind of the question is I'm not revisiting the habit. I just structured it and I'm executing the system and I'm not thinking about it at all. And so I'm trying to figure out how often should I be thinking about what it is I'm doing intentionally.
Never.
And those sorts of things.
This is a good question. This is a good question because this is the dilemma between like systems versus goals.
Yeah.
Like, do you set goals or do you create a system? This has always been my argument that if you're going to create a system has to be oriented towards something. You don't create a system arbitrarily that is by definition, if you just do arbitrary actions, it's not a system. So a system has to produce some kind of specific effect or outcome. Now, taking that into account, how often do you want to revisit the goal that you created the system for? In your case, because we talked, yesterday, where it's like you've had some, health ramifications from doing things what you're doing. This is where comparing, the goal versus the system you created versus like the time frame you're doing on. That's where it's useful because then if you are overextending yourself or if you're underperforming, you now have some sort of set of metrics you can follow. If you're just sort of blindly following yourself through the process, this is where guys will take themselves off a cliff. Because they never, sort of took a step back and considered where am I actually going with this? Is this actually directed? Do I have like North Star in place? Or it's taking me towards that goal? Or am I going sideways? I'm actually, ending up in a spot where I've actually now negatively impacted my health. Now I have to solve that problem. So every system is going to have those sort of like features and faults built into it where you'll have to course correct it every so often. So obviously it's very effective in the sense that you've created this habitualization that it's working, like it is. Yeah, but is it working too well? There is such a thing. So, from a standpoint, what do you do with that? This is where, if whatever goal you set for yourself, whatever system you create, you always want to revisit it. I'd say, I'm gonna say weekly, but monthly, every so often, have some sort of number in place. Let's say for weight loss, your body weight's going down. Okay, that's going down. Am I plateauing? How's my health feel? This is where I get into biomarkers to people. There's certain biomarkers you should all pay attention to as men. If everything's going well, great. If you're losing weight though, but let's say your libido's dropping and you're feeling weak in the gym, okay, maybe we need to take a step back. If your sleep's negatively impacted, that's something to examine. And then we can compare that with the data we have essentially from the habits. There's a level of complication to that, but that's also how you're able to maintain progress long term. Or you'll end up in a place where I've seen this happen for people that are very overweight, where they try to lose body fat and it works. But the way to lose body fat, dramatically, and the way to be healthy long term, those are two different things. It's not the same system. So.
Okay, thank you for translating my question into the system.
No problem.
That was a much better way of phrasing it. Thank you.
Right here.
Oh, there you got someone else. People everywhere.
Oh, you already got one. Okay. Sorry, dude.
Hey guys, we've had some great examples talking about fitness, the gym, and applying that to become a better version of ourselves. the three of you have a lot of skill mastery outside of the gym as well. How do you take the discipline that you structure your routines and apply it to your personal branding, apply it to your style, and do that on a weekly basis, where we're essentially lifting weights one day, we might be doing cardio the other day. How can you help men and fathers have a better routine in that area and basically not skip leg day?
You want to start with personal branding?
Sure. So one of the things that, anyone who's followed me over the past 2 years, sometimes it even surprises me how much growth has occurred without a change in the input of work. The output is increased and the input stayed the same. And one of the things that I think has, well, two, they work in tandem. One, I never forget why I'm in this position at all, like why anyone even cares that I'm up here, right? I never forget that, and I'm always grateful, and I can always go out of my way to remember that each day. If my girlfriend was here, she would tell you that on at least 5 times a week, if not 7 days a week, I'm talking about how much of a good day it is. And for a practical application standpoint to your question, this allows you to always be aware and intent and have a sort of intention of whatever you're going to do, but not from a negative standpoint. Like what I thought his question was earlier, using the link here, I thought he was asking, like, how do I stay committed and had to perform my actions with intention and habit. It turns out that that wasn't the case, but here, thinking about that and using it, the idea for me doing that is I want to stay aware of everything that I've done. So I do keep the work consistent. So I do continue to do what I've done and continue to have a positive connection with it. And I guess I did, kind of walk into the next thing, which is I act with intention every day. And it's easy to do that because I don't feel like what I'm doing is work. So what I found is a very enjoyable way to exist. I tell people all the time now, I'm fortunate in that I get to make a living being myself, just straight up me, for better or worse. Something good happens, something bad happens. I'm grateful that people care for whatever reason, right? And I can go and talk about that and teach from that and use that. So I remember the positive impact that I'm having and how it's helping my life. And I think if you can do that with any habit, then the habit becomes a system, and it becomes really easy for you to just do it. But even when it gets to that point, you still got to step back and go, man, I'm happy that I can do this. I'm happy that I'm here. I'm happy that I have, like you were saying, I'm not a father. Tanner, so he'll give his perspective on that. But if I was a father, every day I remember that I'm so grateful to have a healthy kid that I get to rear and deliver my values to and that kind of thing. And then at that, it just becomes easy. It puts everything in a positive light.
For me, I've found that intentionality is not domain dependent unless we make it that way. And it's a waste if we make it domain dependent, where you get really good at something in the gym, or you get very good at being intentional in your work, and then you don't. Because you have these actions that you do that are intentional, but underlying those actions are the principles, and there's the whys and the hows and all these other things. And it's a waste if we just keep this in one arena that we're really good at being intentional, and then we don't take those same principles and apply them to different actions within different arenas. That's one of the reasons why the three of us wanted to talk together, is because we've found in our own lives that intentionality is not domain dependent. I became a better father when I started going to the gym. And I became a better businessman when I became a better father. And all these things, if you make intentionality a skill set, then you get to apply that skill set to every other arena in your life that matters. And so one of the reasons why we wanted to work together is because we can work with you guys, and even as we're trying to answer these questions now, is helping you see that if you are intentional and you develop that skill set in one arena that matters, then it's like we were just answering over here. You get good at being intentional, And if you're good at being intentional, then you want to do it more, you enjoy it more, you don't have to motivate yourself to do it anymore. You find yourself doing it in all these different arenas, and so that's when you really start to win. That's when you get to this level of optimization. And so get really good at being intentional. Do it in arenas where you get really quick, good feedback, like fitness or appearance or something else. And then the other thing is also recognize when you're able to go from this building mode into maintenance mode. Like, for example, with style, I don't think about what I'm putting on every day any more than you guys do. Because I've gotten myself to the level I want to be, and I get to be on maintenance mode. When I come to an event like this, then I have to think about it a little bit further, just like if you're getting ready for a fight, or if you're getting ready for a performance or a show, then you have to tweak your diet a little bit more. But maintenance mode is infinitely easier. You still get to maintain all those benefits, and then take that skill of being intentional and apply it to the next arena. So it's this virtuous cycle of getting better and better at more and more things while still maintaining what you're already good at, and that's how you start to self-optimize.
So I'm gonna add to this a bit. So my dad, he's a doctor, and he didn't become a doctor until he was 47. So he's like pretty late in life. We went back to school at 40 to 47, graduated at 47. So he's in his 60s now. He's been a physician for, something about like 16 years roughly. So something I always picked up about my father is that he has always had a very clear division of priority in what he does with his life, and I've never seen him half-ass anything ever, at all. But he also does not do too many things. So, from a parenting standpoint, one of the things that I've seen working with parents is that I don't know what your situation is with, your spouse, your wife, your kids, whatever, what that division of labor is. But when you have clear, let's say, gender roles, clear roles of what the father does, clear roles of what the mother does, you have a division of labor where you know who's taking care of what with kids. That allows you to focus your energy better at those things that are priorities to your role and what you're trying to take care of. The situation I've seen working with parents is that people, they never have these conversations with their spouse, whether they're together or divorced, and then it becomes this sort of mess where everyone's trying to take care of everything, or no one's taking care of anything, and then you fall into the state of perpetual reaction to your own reactions. And then at that point, trying to focus your energy, focus it where? You're basically trying to keep up with your own bad habits that were catalyzed, let's say years ago, and how do you even create a system out of that? And then, that's what I call it's this pure chaos. It's like the mess of a life. It's like, well, what should I start working on? You sort of like mentally review. I'm like, well, everything kind of sucks right now. So, then you hit that point. You're like, well, what's a priority then? Oh, geez. Okay, let me figure myself out. But then you trying to figure that out for yourself also is like, well, I need to figure that out with my wife or ex-wife, whatever the situation is. Oh, damn, this is another conversation I have to have. How can you avoid all of that, since that's a lot to solve? You figure out what's important to you, what you need to be doing, and then you make sure that you do only those three things each day. And obviously there's still going to be things that come up in fatherhood where you're going to have to solve problems that you don't expect to have to solve. That's going to happen. But now you're working from a place of stability, and you have a defined role defined roles that you're playing, and you're not trying to fix your own problems while fixing your kids' problems, while fixing your wife's problems, while fixing your marriage's problems, which are affecting your kids' problems. So he talks about the virtuous cycle. You have the cycle of virtue. You also have the cycle of this pure chaos. And that's all of your mistakes and lack of focus and lack of attention compounded on itself. So obviously getting from here to there, yes, that does take time. Where do I think that starts for a lot of the guys? Start doing push-ups. Seriously, because if you do only one thing consistently each day, at least you have that stability with consistency. And it's really hard to argue that dropping down the morning and doing 3 sets to failure, well, at least you're doing something the same way each day, since there's nothing else in your life that you are doing the same except being consistently inconsistent with everything else. Hopefully that made sense.
Awesome. Okay, we have one over here. Okay.
I stole the mic, sorry.
Jeez, Lee, come on.
I'm curious to know what you gentlemen see as you work with men who are building a brand or improving their appearance or physicality that are common and destructive mistakes or mindset errors that they make. The proverbial one step back that we should all be thinking about wanting to avoid going forward.
I'll go first. Man, people forget that they have a valuable perspective. I always tell people to tell your story, because like I could say something 1,000 times and they could have heard it 1,000 other times, combined. And it's how you say it, and whether it be because of how you look or a specific experience, or maybe they just caught it on the right day or time, what you say has an impact and prompts positive change in behavior. And so what I see is people say, oh, no one's going to care what I have to say. No one cares about my experiences, whatever, this, that, or the other. And I'm like, dude, you have to get rid of that mindset. You become valuable partly because you start believing you are valuable. Imposter syndrome is what happens when people give you value and you don't believe you have it. And then you run around thinking like, oh, who cares? And everyone's like, well, no, we really care. We want to hear it. But you don't believe it. So you can't even deliver a great message. I mean, like right now, whether you guys are bored as hell or having a great time, I know what I'm saying is great, right? And I'm gonna walk away feeling like I shared something positive and something constructive for my life. And I see that every person I work with, like everyone, from teaching them how to tweet to present themselves better or overcoming something in their individual lives, people consistently underestimate and undervalue themselves.
I see that exact same thing when it comes to style and presence and presentation. Most of the men that I work with one-on-one, they diminish themselves. They know that they don't dress or carry themselves or speak in a way that's poor or mousy or bad. They just get to this point of being a safe neutral. And they have a desire to get into the territory of being something stronger, whether that's adding more edge to their look or anything else. But there's a fear of the risk of trying and failing, and it's the flip side of the coin of this imposter syndrome, where maybe people won't expect something of me that I don't expect of myself. I'm not capable of it, so that's where that imposter syndrome comes in. And then the other side of it is, and at the same time, they're also not going to see me try something and fail at it. They're just going to see me as being effortless but not masterful. And it's like we desire effortlessness more than we desire mastery, because there's not risk that comes with that. And so it's this. I see those as two sides of the same coin, and it's really helping men get enough confidence to be willing to take more risk, whether that's with their branding, whether that's with their physicality, their presentation, anything else, and recognize that you are capable of handling that risk. And even if you make a mistake and you fail, the way that you respond to that risk is where your confidence should come from. That's where your power, that's where your self-esteem should come from, as opposed to the fact that you never fail, therefore somehow that makes you a better person. It's a weird inverse of where our value should come from.
This is a simple thing, but the negative self-talk. So everyone has a story about themselves that you reinforce in the course of your life. You have your beliefs, you have the things you say to yourself, you have that conversation that you have with your mind. That destructive mind that you have, that sort of you converse with, and it takes many forms. It could be sort of like it could be a gremlin, it can be the sort of devil, it can just be what your father said to you when you're growing up, the way you dealt with your mother. But this sort of reinforces these conversations we have where, from the very beginning, we sort of set ourselves up to fail because we're framing our language in such a way that's negative. It could be something very basic, like I want to go to the gym. I'm just going to pick on you because I love Indian people. My girlfriend's Indian, so whatever. So I've worked a lot. I have a lot of Indian clients, and they'll have this belief they have where it's like, I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger, but I'm just like, I'm a skinny Indian, like brown boy, like kind of bullshit. I'm like bro, look at how you're talking to yourself.
I get that with a lot of style guys.
Like style guys, the techie thing. Like I work with a lot of tech guys where it's like, so they like the dorky look. They wear a backpack. They dress like they're still in college, and they dress shitty in middle school, and they've been dressing crappy for 20 years. It's like this doesn't have to be who you are the rest of your life. You have this image that you've created about yourself that this is who I am, and this is just how it is. And can I improve this much from this point? Like, let's back up. Like, do you approach every area of your life this way? No. Usually they have something where they've actually accomplished some level of success. Okay, what was your attitude towards that? And usually it's a bit of a different attitude. They were determined, they want to do this, they believe themselves. All right, is that way of conversing with yourself, is that something that can be carried over somewhere else, a different part of your life? And usually it is. And if you're starting from nothing, that's a bit of a different conversation. Maybe let's just start with the physical because you have nothing else you've done. If you're an older gentleman, though, you're a father, you've done things that you're good at. You had kids, you have a son, you have a daughter. You're probably doing something right that you can be proud of.
So can you take that? Can you take that positivity and can you reframe how you speak to yourself that way? You probably can. Yeah, and that's where I see the big change in mindset comes from, because you're starting to change how you write your story as you live your life daily. And that's kind of what Ed does daily, where every day is a good day. It'd be hard for someone to come into his life and make him feel bad because he already has a way he writes his story, the way he writes his tweets, where it's positive, it's uplifting. So.
All right, we got time for one more.
Come on.
Yeah.
These guys are winning well.
Oh, snap, there's a clock.
Surprise.
All right, so my name's Jeremiah. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm a chiropractor. I got a bunch of kids as well, but I would like to. One of the things I'd like to do is have a little bit better presence when I'm at work dealing with patients. I also be able to get a little more respect from my family members. So I was going to ask, what with the realms of branding, style, and fitness, what things would you suggest that I emphasize in my life?
Why would you say your presence lacks?
I think it honestly stems from home.
I'll rephrase it because I'm curious about something.
Okay.
How do you see yourself? Like, how do you want to be seen is a better way? Because saying it lacks, is like, you may feel like your presence is lacking, but maybe it's not. So I'm curious, how, like,
Good way to phrase it.
how do you want to be seen? How do you think you should be seen, and why? And how you want to be seen will not be how people are seeing you. That's what we want to look at. So how do you want to be seen?
I'd like to be seen as an authority. Like when I got out of school, I grew a beard so that I could look 5, 10 years older, command a little bit better respect. That type of thing. Sometimes I feel like I'd like to have the authority in that interaction, and sometimes it's there. A lot of times it isn't, though.
Do you feel like you've earned the authority? Like, are you an authority within your business?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a matter of mastery or competence, it's a matter of communication of that competence, right?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the first thing, okay, so I'll hit this and we'll do this quick just from a style perspective, but one of the things that I teach guys from that perspective is you need to understand how an authority within your particular field is perceived by who your niche is, by who your audience is. Because an authority that is a doctor, he's going to have a lab coat. An authority in the military is going to wear certain clothes and be perceived a certain way. An authority who's a teacher over small children. There are different ways that we expect authority to look within different fields. And that will be different with you as a chiropractor. It will be different with you being in Oklahoma than if you were in LA. And it's going to be different even based on how you differentiate yourself from your competition within your field and within your city. And so trying to pinpoint what authority looks like, and then finding a way that you can communicate that while still being authentic to you, because if you do it at the expense of what you feel authoritative in, then that's when you feel like you're playing dress up, and that's when you feel like you're a poser, and it kills all that credibility, it kills all that authority. So it has to be a balance of both what the tribe, what your audience sees and expects authority to look with, and what you see, so that when you see yourself in the mirror, you see a man that's worth that authority. You're killing that imposter syndrome yourself. So from a style perspective, those are the two things that we would need to look at. And what I would do if you were a client is we would actually get down into the nitty-gritty of what that actually looks like and come up with a solution together. So from a style perspective, that's how we would build that.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute left, so I'm going to talk to you after. Since I actually have a lot to say about this.
It's a fun question.
Yeah, the short version would be, this goes into the physical standpoint. I'm just going to adjust myself. When you're training in the gym, you have to visualize what you're turning into. And there is such a thing as training. I mean, you're not doing exotic exercises, but when you're doing something like a bench press, when you're doing something that's like an upper body movement, when you're training shoulders, you want to visualize power within yourself, where you can express that. And that's something that combative stuff brings out, where it's like you have to hit this bag, and you have to hit it hard. And there's a level of aggression, a level of intent with that. So if I was training at the gym, I'd be asking you want to improve your presence, you want people to take you more seriously. Let's take this seriously right now. I want you to apply intense focus to this and have good posture during these farmers' walks and walk upright. And when you grip it with authority. I mean, this is what training does for you, because it allows you to take these qualities that you want to live out, and you can actively apply it to what you're literally moving, to how you're moving. That's why, that's why when we see someone that's like a warrior, when we see someone that's like a Navy SEAL, when we see someone that we know has physically
gotten their body and mentality into a state, we know there's something there that they've done that's mental and physical. And like with the physical is what we usually focus on. Like why do guys like to bench press? Because men like having big chests. Why does a man like having big chest or shoulders?
Gets you laid.
Yeah, it does. Well, women like it. If you're a guy with shoulders, do men take you more seriously? Yeah, they do. If you've got huge arms, or do you get no looks from people? Yeah, you do. Is that shallow? On one level it is, but on another level it's because we know that perception appearance is power. So.
Let's talk after, because that's
Yeah,
a
we'll
fun
talk
question.
after.
Okay, guys, so we're out of time, but one of the things that we want to talk to you guys about, unless you wanted to answer something related.
Oh no, I was gonna give you like a real quick thing, and I'll talk after. You're right. So.
I gotta use the bathroom, guys. Another way for like an hour.
Did you raise your hand?
Yes, you're excused.
So one of the things that comes with being respected and having that authority in our presence, if you look at every single one of the speakers here, what I love, you can tell kind of by definition, because we're the ones that put our faces out there and take the attack. We're not afraid to be disliked. And I find a lot of guys who have problems projecting authority and gaining respect, you probably play nice. At the very least, play more cooperatively than it sometimes would be beneficial for you to get what you need and where you need to go. And so people, it's unfortunate, but we take kindness as weakness, and a lot of times that causes everyone, like if you feel that way in work and home, and likely somewhere socially, even though you didn't talk about that, we'll go with work and home. If you feel that way, you almost certainly give ground too easily about what you know from the respect that you are, from the training you got for work and the bunch of kids and the family put together, from what you know, and you likely probably give a little too much ground. I could be completely wrong, but my first intuitive, I'm gonna shoot out an answer before we gotta go, analysis is that. So don't be afraid to be the bad guy.
So I love that you finished off that way, because this ties in perfectly to, you guys have noticed that we've had to do quite a bit of back and forth, and we've been able to answer some things relatively specifically, but we've also had to answer quite a bit in platitudes or kind of general ideas, because each one of your situations and scenarios is very different, which is why we originally came up with the idea of doing this self-optimization summit, because we know from our own experience that just being able to talk about things in general doesn't always, it can get trapped in this world of theory as opposed to actually turning into transformation and actually becoming a better version. So what we're doing is we're putting on a summit, or it's actually more of a lived-in experience. We're doing it the week of November 4th through November 10th. We're doing it at a house in Hollywood. We've got about a dozen spots, and you guys are gonna get to come spend 6 days with us. So you'll be working out with the three of us, having Alexander help you out every morning with workouts. You'll be going through very specific stuff related to style and body language. We'll be talking about personal branding, whether that's online or even how you brand yourself in a relationship to who you're with at work. Yeah, who you're with at work or anything else. And we may even do a little bit of combat training. You may have to spar all three of us. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that, come up and talk to one of the three of us. We'll give you some more details. And yeah, we expect this to fill up relatively quickly. That's why we wanted to talk about this with you guys first, because we know that you're the kind of men who have already put skin in the game. You've already put your money where your mouths are, and you're really interested in not just thinking about this theoretically, but actually applying something. So if you're interested, come talk to us about it, especially before we do kind of our own big initial announcement. But thank you guys for being here with us. We know there were some other great workshop options. Awesome, you made it back. So thank you guys for your time. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
What he represents is patriarchy. We're here to do work as men, as patriarchs.
There's nothing more natural than being a father.